People who work in surveillance, what's the most unexplained or creepy thing you've seen on video? LPO here. I see crazy crap all the time. One of the creepiest things I have seen was a string of toys moving on its own down an aisle. It was like a duck with smaller ducks. Of course, I had to investigate. When I zoomed in, I was surprised to see that they were real ducks. I would have loved to see your expression at the point you realized they were actual ducks. Nothing like an emotional roller coaster from creepy as frick to super adorable. Had a game camera out once and I had a neighbor who would just walk through my property. I didn't care. The place is pretty and there's no back fence, but I kept having sheep go missing, so I set out a camera. The camera caught my neighbor walking by, then like 30 seconds later a mountain lion walked by it stalking him. It apparently never attacked as he was fine, but he had no idea how close he was to that thing. Maybe your sheep are missing due to no back fence. I used to work overnights at a hotel and would monitor the security cameras. They would detect motion and a little indicator would blink when motion was, well, detected. Anyway, it always gave me the creeps when I'd hear the elevator ding. I'd run out to the lobby to greet the guest to make sure they didn't need something or whatever, and nobody would get off the elevator. I'd watch the tapes and see the motion indicator blinking on a floor, then see the elevator open on that floor, then see the elevator open on the ground floor and the motion indicator blink on the camera down the hall. Gave me the heebie-jeebies. Also, one time I was in my office in the middle of the night and it sounded like someone banged on the door with the side of their fist. Just one single slam. You can see me reacting to it on the video. My head whipped to face the door where the sound came from, then immediately whipped around to stare at the camera to see who the frick was outside my door. There was nobody there, and none of the motion sensors had picked up anything. Not fun finishing the rest of that shift. I was house sitting in a huge house and set up a canary camera near my bedroom. I had an uneasy feeling someone else was in the house with me, so I set up the camera just to make sure no one came near my room. In the middle of the night someone approached it from behind and turned it so it faced a blank wall. Then a few minutes later turned it back the way it was before. It tripped the canary and I got a notification on my phone. I saw it and searched the house thoroughly the next morning and never found anything. Needless to say, I slept with my door locked the rest of my time there. I have a home security system with a camera that watches in the living room. I saw my cat and my dog both sitting together in the dog's bed. The cat freaking hates the dog. I think she was possessed. Theirs is a forbidden love. I worked in a maximum security prison for a while. I was assigned to central control one night, which is where the camera screens were. One of the cameras was for the classifications room. I glanced at it and there was an inmate in there. This was super odd because it was 2 in the morning and nobody was supposed to be in there. Everyone that had keys to that room went home at 5. Anyways, so this inmate is just sitting in there doing nothing. I got the sergeant's attention and told him someone was in there, and gave him the spare key to the room. He went to go check it out with a couple of other people, but by the time they got there, the room was empty. They searched for like 15 minutes but there was definitely no one in there. I used to have an apartment pretty close to my office. The office building was kind of in a business district, but it was also kind of off on its own relative to the city's commercial district footprint. I sold the apartment and before moving into my new home, I left my bicycle chained to the building's bike rack. It was only going to be there for a few days in that no man's land before I was able to move into the new place. Anyway, one day in the middle of the week, I come into the office, walk past the bike rack and notice that it's completely empty. The building has a bunch of security cameras and one more or less is facing the bike rack since it's adjacent to the front entryway. I sit and watch the security tape with the IT guy. We're watching, see everyone leave the office the night before, see the bike, keep watching, then all of a sudden poof, bike gone. We slowed the tape down and it seemed like when you're watching digital cable or satellite and the image gets garbled. Literally it was bike there, then poof gone. In the tape's timestamp it literally happened in 1 second. I assume my bike got taken to the upside down. This solidifies my belief that sometimes things just straight up disappear. You know, like the book my friend wants back that I borrowed from him a few months ago, before I moved. I work security. During the weekdays I'm doing parking. While weekends I'm at the desk solo. I'll always remember this one Saturday. It was the second shift ever working the weekend and I was watching the cameras when this one guy came to the side door. He looked around inside and just before I could activate the speaker to let him know he was on private property, he looked directly at the camera and stared what felt like a minute. When I took my hand away from the button, he started to walk away. I ran to the side door to see if I could see where the heck he was walking and he was gone. The only thing that was in that direction was more freaking wall. So to this day whenever I'm watching the cameras, I'm waiting for this guy. This happened a few years before I started working at my current job. The elevators in my building go down to the first and second basement. Late one night, one of our security guards spots a group of people heading into the elevator at level 4. He thinks it's curious because nobody is supposed to be in the building after midnight, so he keeps a close watch on all the lobby cameras to see which floor the group alights at. The doors open at basement 2, but nobody comes out. The second guard scurries down to the elevator doors while the first guard keeps his eye on the cameras to make sure no one has left. When the second guard gets to the basement elevator, he looks puzzled and searches around. He comes back to the guard station to confirm that it's empty, putting the building on lockdown. The two guards spend the rest of the night combing the building together, but they were unable to find anyone or anything. They decide to call the police, who review the footage and see the same thing. In the end, the sighting was still unexplained, but my workplace decided to stop being cheap and install security cameras in the elevators too. Dang, would have been cool to see the elevator footage of that creepy story. I edited together the footage from the security cameras outside Pulse before, during and after the shooting. Though there were many sad and or disturbing things to be seen, the strange one was a wounded man that appeared out of nowhere. He waved his hands for help and cops came over and carried him to safety. I tried numerous times to rewind to find out where he came from, but he was just there or he wasn't. He didn't crawl to where he had gotten, he just appeared. He looked like he made it out okay. I'm interested in hearing some of your other stories. I used to work at a place which required to be manned 24 hours a day. Reason being is that I handled sensitive documents files, and if somebody needed this information in the middle of the night I would have to fetch it for them or confirm that I have it. Anyways, security is kind of tight. Bars on windows, multiple locked doors to get to where I am. They would give me work to do during the night, but underestimated how quickly I could get it done. So like most nights, I finished my work in like 30 to 45 minutes and pulled out my phone and played games, Netflix, browse Reddit, since nobody else is in the building at night. So now it is getting to be the last third of my shift when all of a sudden I hear a door close. I look to the security camera and see someone walking down a hall towards my room. At first I thought it was just somebody that came in ridiculously early, so I turn around and wait for them to come in. But nobody came in, and the hairs start rising on my back. Now, this isn't a really big building, so I figure I'll find the guy wherever he is and start checking offices and storage rooms, but come up empty-handed. However, I do see that a fire door had shut. I go to try and rewind the camera, but the digital recording is password protected and I don't know the password. Anyways, the whole thing freaked me out. The way the person was walking down the hallway, like a determined walk right to where I was. So, I sit with my spine tingling for the last couple hours of my shift, and finally people start coming in. My replacement shows up and I tell her what I saw, and at this point I figured I must have imagined the whole thing. I'm told to go home and the manager and girl who replaced me would look over the camera. After getting home I call my manager and ask what was on the camera. So they said that the video showed the fire door closing, but then the video froze for about an hour. The next thing it records is me reopening the door. I used to work as a security officer and was in charge of surveillance dispatch at a theme park. I was once casually watching a camera that was mounted in one of the ride's management office, and I saw someone pooping in the desk side trash can. I used to work at a college and I had to review 18 hours of security footage once to see who was vandalizing some bulletin boards. It happened sometime between noon on Saturday and 8 AM on Sunday, so I had to sit there and review the footage. I watched a half dozen couples fight, a high guy stare at the bulletin board for probably 10 minutes, 3 PM. A drunk girl in heels fall over and drag her two other friends down with her. They then rolled around laughing their asses off. 9 PM. A couple finger banging in the hall, 11 PM. A dude in a chicken costume going for a stroll 3 am. Some shady dude in a hood wander around and press his ear to doors 4 am. I used to work security at a college dorm and I once witnessed one of the doors on a washing machine slowly open itself and proceed to tear itself clean off of the machine. Told my boss this creepy story and showed him the video and he made me review camera footage for the rest of the night to find out who broke the machine despite the fact that he watched it break itself. Your boss probably thought somebody was fricking with it before and caused it to fall off when you saw it. That's the most likely answer that I can think of. Used to see little crescent-shaped light orbs floating around the back dock of a nursing home that I did a little security for when I was young. First time I saw it I thought it was a reflection of a flashlight and that somebody was screwing around behind the building. I jumped up and ran to that door only to find that it was pitch dark and no movement of any kind going on. Only explanation I was ever able to come up with is it had something to do with the electrical panel energizing when the AC units would kick on. Don't know for sure but it made me feel a little better. Also around that time the nurses found a cat that had been deboned, sprawled out on the sidewalk in front of the healthcare entrance. Paws and skull were the only hard bits left. Lem, have you one boneless cat? I have cameras on my front and back doors that send video to my phone when they detect movement. I was out of town and woke up to seeing several police officers walking around in my front and backyard. I called my neighbor to find out what had happened and found out that someone had crashed their car through my back fence, which borders the highway. I helped a friend to install a camera inside an elevator. The mall guards had a special drive location for interesting footage. They showed us an elderly couple making out inside an elevator. It wasn't creepy because they were old, but because our sweet grandpa and grandma turned into lust beasts as soon as the door closed, and back to sweet just before the door opened again. That elevator has seen a lot of action. Gay, straight and other, but that couple was in the top 10. I used to work part-time doing surveillance work for an art gallery. I went in horribly sick one day because I worked on a contract and had to meet a quota for so many hours. Otherwise I'd have to make it up elsewhere, which was borderline impossible for me because I only had free time on weekends, when they were closed. So, here I am with a fever and a trash can, dripping sweat and staring at these screens when, all of a sudden, on the lower gallery, I see this black, oozing mass creeping across the floor. It just kinda slithered across the brick, up the wall, pulled into a perfect circle in the middle of the room. Then, it stood up into this weird, elongated shadow person with spindly arms and no eyes, looked up at the camera, then very rapidly melted back into the floor and bolted toward the hallway that led to my desk. I screamed bloody murder. Then, I threw up. Also, no, that thing wasn't really there. I was just way sicker than I thought. It was a fever hallucination. My boss came in and sent me home shortly after she came to see if I had died. And I actually still use that weird, gangly thing my brain came up with as a motif in some of my art. Haha. You have been visited by the motorcyclist monkey. Come at monkey cycling so you never arrive late to somewhere. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.